Hello there! Right here we have the very first pre-release for 1.20 version. So after snapshots comes these pre-releases, after pre-releases come release candidates, and then the actual full release. So we're very close to the full release, probably within a month or so. And with pre-releases, they're mostly going to focus on bug fixes. But in this one we got some new features as well as some controversial changes. Let's see what this all means for the game, and be sure you guys leave a like and are still subscribed. Guys, we finally got something we've always wanted, and that is recoloring stuff. So we're able to actually put in any type of color wool, such as like blue wool, and put dye with it to recolor it to a different color wool. This also works for carpets. So if you have a whole bunch of certain colored carpets, you can re-dye them for something else. And beds, you don't have to recraft beds from a special dyed wool. You can just dye them to whatever color you want. This is a really nice quality of life update, and I'm glad they brought it to wool because it is somewhat realistic in real life. You can like re-dye wool. It's not even a complicated system. It's not like you have to remove all the dye from like the blue dye, like washing it or anything, to get it back to white before dyeing it. Now there is a lot of different items in the game that are colored, so I'm guessing people are going to request that you can recolor these other items as well. So do you think they should allow it so that you can pretty much recolor any item in the game? They changed some death messages, such as like the world border. If you happen to go through the world border and you go all the way out a bit too far, you start getting damage. Now when you die out here, you're not going to die from suffocating in the wall. Instead, you're going to die from a different type of damage, which is called outside border damage, which gets you the message, Ray's left the confines of this world. Even though I was the first person to reach all 12 world borders in survival, it's unlikely for most people to reach a world border, as it is out 30 million blocks, but with commands you can move this in closer. They also changed how the kill command works. Now it's actually considered a generic kill. So if we actually die from this, we're no longer going to die from being outside the world, but it just says was killed. They also changed how the randomness is occurring within loot tables, such as inside this trail rune structure here. We got some suspicious gravel, and if we look at the actual block, we can see it has a loot table seed, and this is the seed here, and also has a loot table, which is this number here. So now the game uses the named random sequence to determine the products of loot tables. Each random sequence produces a unique sequence based on the world seed. But not only the seed, it also uses the sequence ID, which means the loot table will produce the same result when ran in the same parameters in the same world. There's a special field where you can modify this. This allows speedrunners to get the same loot each time they open the same world from the same structures. You know how honey blocks will hold on to players and move them when they move with pistons? Well, with last week's change, the stickiness of a honey block also applies to the very edge now. So even if you have a little piece of you touching the honey block, it was supposed to stick onto the player and move them, but it wasn't actually doing this. So in today's version, it fixes that. So even if you're standing just on a little piece of it, it will also move you. This is actually quite useful in areas like here in my fly machine, which breaks down all the cane and collects it using these hopper minecarts. I would have had these hopper minecarts on top of some honey blocks down here, except because the center of them wasn't touching any part of this block over here. It wasn't actually moving with the machine and sticking to it. But with today's change, we can now actually have the hopper minecarts on the edge of honey blocks, and they will properly move forward and backwards with fly machines. And there's many other cases like this where you can get more precision on where you want stuff to stay. What other places might this be helpful? With last week's change, where the blocks that are barely touching the player will actually slow them down, as long as there's air beside it. This was applying to most entities, except where there was one that I noticed wasn't actually working, and that was to do with the actual items. So if the items were like placed on the very edge of ice, they weren't actually getting the slipperiness of ice. The same thing for the other block properties. So during my live stream, I made a bug report, and the bug was fixed today. So now if only a very small part of the item is touching the ice, you'll still get the slipperiness of it, which you could use for item aligning when transporting items into storage systems. But keep in mind, blocks only pick up the properties of the block beside them if there is air or water to the side of it. So if there's a hopper block over here, since the item is mostly on top of the hopper, it's not going to slide on the ice because it's mostly on top of this block over here. So it'd only be helpful in edge cases, pun intended. But the change to how a supporting block under entity can affect how they can move was actually causing the game to completely freeze when loading certain areas. Because let's say there's a villager in a village, the game would see there's a villager, then it would have to check to see what type of block is underneath of the villager, but the game itself doesn't know exactly where the villager is yet because it's being loaded in, therefore it can't determine what block's actually underneath of it, which would cause this loop of freezing, which is resolved in this pre-release. I recently just made this shorts video here, where I showed some cool tricks that you can use to avoid the change of walking slower while being on the edge of blocks. Now this cool little trick that I found wasn't actually fixed, but an older trick that's used by parkour players where you can actually avoid the effects of blocks altogether, where when you jump off the blocks, there's a short period that you're not technically on the block, but you're still able to jump. And in this moment, if you do jump, you're able to avoid the stickiness of honey and make a normal jump where normally you'd be kind of stuck to it. And it turns out that apparently they didn't want this in the game because people would be avoiding the honey stickiness, and therefore they actually fixed it in this snapshot, which is actually a pretty big deal because parkour players use this quite a lot. So this could potentially completely change parkour, as if there's a block above you, a lot of times you have to be completely off of the block before you're able to actually jump. But it does seem that you're able to make this jump, so maybe they just did it in a way that affects honey blocks. So if you're a parkour player, let me know if you notice any difference when making different types of jumps. And how do you think this will affect the game? When it comes to portals giving you this animation when going through it, notice that the animation sticks with you when you pop up on the nether side. The animation is still playing here in front of your face. You might think of this as normal, but back before version 1.4, which is way back in the day, the portal animation, once you actually went to nether side, wouldn't pop up in your face. And this is how it's supposed to be. Meaning one of the oldest bugs in Minecraft from almost 11 years ago has finally been resolved. It will no longer have this annoying swirly animation when coming through the other side of a portal. Meaning we no longer have this blocking our view when trying to go out of a portal. This is especially going to be nice when you come to the other side and you're trying to place blocks. If you're up in the air on a portal, you don't have all that crazy animation blocking your view. Speaking of nether portals, there was actually a bug in the previous snapshot. When you'd go through a nether portal, the nether dimension wouldn't load properly, which was fixed in this pre-release. So with the rework of the Ender Dragon in 1.9, you could resummon the dragon using Ender Crystals. But if there happened to be an Ender Crystal that was actually already in the world when the End Dimension tried getting generated, it would realize that the portal in the very center shouldn't actually have a dragon here, but instead just default it to being pre-lit. This was probably done when updating old worlds to the new dragon setup. But this had the unintended consequence: if you happen to enter the end and place down Ender Crystal yourself, you could just prevent the dragon from ever spawning and then just immediately make the exit end portal already be complete, so you wouldn't even have to kill the dragon to reach the end credits. And this is used now by speedrunners who run the Minecraft glitch category, where you can use this glitch to essentially skip killing the dragon and reach the end credits, which is the objective of those Minecraft speedruns. So 11 versions later, they finally fixed this, so you can no longer skip the dragon fight just by placing down an Ender Crystal. This won't affect the main speedrunning categories, which don't use glitches, but the biggest impact being on the set seed any percent. What do you think about them fixing really old bugs that most people never run across, but are used by prominent areas of the Minecraft community like speedrunners? They also fixed this really annoying bug, which is if you're in normal walking mode, just walking on some blocks, and then you decide to go into spectator mode, your player actually drops down a partial block for no apparent reason. And I actually talked to one of the Minecraft developers about this, as this can be really tough to work around when you're trying to do precise measurements, and then when you actually come out of this game mode, your player is also now stuck in the block underneath instead of being on top of it. I'm quite happy that this is now fixed, so I don't have to worry about falling through the ground. When breaking a block, this animation here, which is the destroy animation, was different if you were watching it yourself versus someone else watching it. Notice this little pixel right here shows up sooner from other people watching you break the block than you yourself. This pixel's missing. This meant that the last frame of breaking would actually just vanish, and other people would just see this block that looked like it wasn't mined, where you, the player, would actually just finish mining it, and then only then would it remove the entire block. This is why on multiplayer servers, a lot of times it look like they'd be delayed between the player breaking the block and the actual block dropping. So they adjusted this so it'll show that it's fully broken just before the block vanishes. They also fixed a wide variety of different bugs related to text and graphics all throughout the game. They resolved encoding errors for the server properties and made different strings on realms now translatable. There's actually a deadline for upgrading your Minecraft account from the Mojang account to a Microsoft account. This is the one where if you would upgrade your account, then you would get the cape in game, but it also said they had the benefits of having your single account for all the different Minecraft games, two-factor authentication, as well as improved player safety. And you would automatically get access to Bedrock Edition if you had a Mojang account. So once September 19th comes around 2023, you'll no longer use your account to log into Minecraft.net or the launcher in order to migrate. And even 2 weeks prior to that, they will no longer have support for migration-related tickets, which makes it sound like you won't be able to migrate your account after that date, which would mean essentially your account is unusable. Even though in the frequently asked questions, it says if you don't move your account, you'll need to move your account or risk not being able to play the game, which doesn't sound as severe. So hopefully people that come back to play the game after several years are still able to actually have their account and continue playing it and don't have to like completely buy a brand new one. For most people, it seems that they think that your account will get deleted essentially. What do you think of this change? Do you think they'll just force people to buy brand new accounts? Now join me live over at my Twitch live stream where you can play along with me as we test out all these cool features and discover new tricks and glitches. I do it every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Or check out this video about crazy tricks I found over the last 14 years, or this one all about the new 1.20 farms. Thank you all who hit the subscribe button as we reach 370,000 subscribers, making our way closer to 400,000 and the sweet, sweet goal of 1 million subscribers. It's all because of you guys sharing what I do with other Minecrafters, so pat yourself on the back and leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!